Whoops, LinkedIn says you're not approved for LinkedIn Live. It's only available for a little bit. Hey, this is Mark Smith, host of Digital Roughneck, and I'm here with Steve Reese from Reese Energy Consulting. Hey, welcome, Steve.
Thank you.
So, Steve, well, first of all, I want to say, hey, this particular episode is brought to you by Clean Connect. And Clean Connect AI is a brand new real-time methane leak detection system for upstream providers, and also has tank level monitoring. So I want to thank Clean Connect for sponsoring this episode. So Steve, tell me about your Reese services and how you got into oil and gas and kind of your background.
Thank you. This is my 40th year in the energy arena. Was originally with in the corporate world with Texaco for about a dozen years, and then we formed some of the Reese entities in 1994. Primarily, our driving company is Reese Energy Consulting, and we consult for producers, midstream companies, end users. I've been doing that for over 25 years. Our expertise lies in contractual commercial arrangements and negotiations, midstream engineering, energy planning, energy research, and the marketing primarily of natural gas, oil, and natural gas liquids. And our staff are all seasoned types like myself with this same hair color. So we've been around for a while, but we also have a sister company, Reese Energy Training, that provides training services to the industry. We've done a lot of in-house natural gas training for the likes of Devon and One Oak and Boardwalk Pipeline Partners and most of the Fortune 500 energy companies over the years. And our latest venture is Reese Midstream Report, which is kind of the new subscription blog for all things midstream. Basically, we're wanting to inform the energy sector of the daily goings on in the midstream arena, the activities, the companies and executives making a difference every day. We have job postings, energy information on there, and we're following the trends and all the relevant projects going in to the midstream arena during these times.
Okay. Well, hey, Steve, I want to thank you for being here. And I think what would be good for us is to tackle what's really going on right now in the market. I mean, we saw a couple days ago, the price of oil with the WTI hitting negative 35. I mean, and I think a lot of people in the industry were freaking out. And there's some reasons and stuff behind there, which you may want to explain, but kind of, is this the new normal, with low energy prices? And if so, what's going to happen, to what do oil and gas companies need to do as a result? So let's discuss that, let's talk about the problem and maybe some opportunities that might arise from that.
Well, obviously the first thing, of course, we need to bifurcate for the folks out there is the negative oil prices weren't necessarily any daily physical prices for natural gas. They were driven through the price of the May contracts for delivery under the NYMEX futures contracts. But yes, crude oil prices have taken a hit. We've recently kind of seen the perfect storm, if you will, between the Russians and Saudis ramping up their production, and they have cut some, obviously the COVID-19 scenario, but I feel most importantly was an oversupply. And we've had a lot of wells and a lot of areas where we had over-drilled and overpriced acreage and wells. And a lot of both the major E&Ps and the private equity-backed E&P firms felt like they could drill their way out of their financial issues, and it has now come to roost. And there were poor management practices with these assets. And a lot of firms, specifically the PE-backed firms, felt like that they were in real estate plays more than they were drilling economic wells, that they felt like they could somewhat develop some of this acreage and turn around and flip them for large returns. Some of that has happened, and the same on the midstream side. And now we're in a situation to where, a lot of producers are hanging on by the skin of their teeth.
So what did that do? Okay, so we had the right, you have the one index, the one price deal that deals with physical oil, and there was just no more places to store it. So it was like they had to deal with it, versus, Brent, which is traded in cash, and that price didn't suffer nearly as much. But what did that overall do to the price of natural gas? I saw maybe even a little bit of a bump relative to that.
I think we'll see at least a near-term bump, because what obviously is going to happen, whether or not it's done voluntarily or involuntarily, is there's going to be some production shut in. And a lot of this oil production that's shut in also has associated gas along with it. So with natural gas prices, the supply is going to be tampered a little bit for at least the near term. And we think that we'll see possibly a small spike in natural gas. Also, we're going to be probably looking at, obviously, some consolidations, some bankruptcies, and actually maybe even the entrance as to some of the banking institution becoming oil producers, because they hold a lot of that debt, and there's a possibility that you're going to see banking institutions operating oil and gas wells. As a matter of fact, our intelligence tells us that some of these banks are staffing up with geologists and operational personnel, et cetera, to look at that coming. But you're correct on the storage. And if you look at, especially here in our neck of the woods in Oklahoma, the Cushing tank farm is not totally full at this point. But as far as if you look at the commitments through May, every drop of space at Cushing right now is spoken for.
Well, so obviously because of the COVID situation, and of course you got the backdrop of the Russia-Saudi, price wars and whatnot. I mean, obviously nothing they can do about the COVID thing except, hey, let's get everybody back to work and get the demand up to where we can start using up some of this oversupply. But let's just say it takes a while for all this to iron out. What are some opportunities that you see in the market to, I guess, maybe operate more efficiently so you can be more profitable, that kind of thing?
Well, obviously, on the exploration production side, I think that there's going to be a lot more scrutiny as to which wells are drilled. And I think we could go back and see a lot more cheaper vertical type wells drilled than these very expensive horizontal wells that have happened in the past. And it could be 1986 again for a period of time at these prices, because I don't foresee any $50 or $60 oil hitting the books here in the next few months, if our research is correct. So between that they're going to have to really strategize as to where they drill and what they drill and their capital expenditures on that. And of course, as we see now, the rig counts are way down. In Oklahoma right now, we've only got about 20 rigs running in the entire state. I think also there's going to be more outsourcing. Obviously, there's been a lot of layoffs, and we see that effect in Oklahoma City, Tulsa, et cetera, Denver, significantly on a daily basis. I think they will look towards more outsourcing. And I also do feel like that there's going to be more needs for services like yours, as far as more digital things, more remote operations, et cetera. The one thing, again, is storage. And my producing clients right now are actually calculating how much storage do they have available in their own tanks, their own tank batteries at their locations, and actually doing the math. If we just keep producing, how long will it take us just to fill up the tanks that we have on location. Some producers are always looking for frac tanks, the tanks that, provide the water to frac with when the wells are drilled. A lot of those are becoming very hot commodities. Rail cars, the pipelines themselves. So we're in a unique situation right now.
Right. So storage, especially if you could buy oil right now or anything at this low volume, store for a little while, wait for the price to come up just a little bit. Storage could be quite a lucrative business at this point.
It is. And if you look at the other sectors right now, the midstream sector is somewhat affected probably from a volume standpoint for both oil and gas. But the midstream sector has moved away from commodity exposure type contracts to more fee-based tolling arrangements. And the midstream entities just can't shut down. They still have to get natural gas to heat homes or for industrial usage. There is still some demand for refineries and other uses of crude oil. So on the midstream side, there's got to be a way for them to figure out their strategies, and we're going to see consolidations in that sector, a lot of A&D activity as well. And then on the commercial side, who and what and kind of how to possibly renegotiate some of these midstream contracts to entice people to drill or to bring more volume to the table or whatever. And the midstreamers are also going to have to be very careful with respect to their capital expenditures and ensure that they have returns and they're not out there also speculating on space and on activity as well. So, this obviously affects all sectors, including the downstream and the utilities, as well.
So if we're going to pull back on new drilling, or at least get super efficient at it, or very like the only thing that can get an immediate return, then they got to get really then super efficient with what they've got now, right? Because just if you blanket shut it all in, it's not like you can turn it back on with a flip of a switch, right?
Well, and now you're going to be forced to be efficient, especially if you've cut your staff dramatically.
Right.
You have to still be able to operate. There's still, government reporting requirements. There's still environmental considerations. There are still rights of ways and easements and pipelines to consider and continue to operate efficiently and appropriately. The one key that we hit a lot on the remote scenarios is gas measurement, because we do a lot of field auditing for producers to ensure that their natural gas or their oil or their liquids are being measured correctly and they're getting credit for those. And a lot of that industry does have telemetry in place.
Yeah.
But I think that's going to be further scrutinized. I think it's going to further look for more technology, and that's something that my team is on top of. We have some experts in the midstream measurement arena, but that is something that they're going to have to look at those strategies of how they manage their measurement systems and their storage as well, because a lot of these midstream gas plant facilities make somewhat of a crude oil in their plant condensate, and that product right now is not a product that is looked favorable upon, and a lot of that product has just been shut in.
So, so you're out there with midstream, upstream, whatever, looking at that, and Digital Roughneck. The whole idea behind it was, we imagined a person that had this operational and sort of IT backgrounds, or they're learning both, so that they could manage pads remotely. Okay. Well, that's the big idea, that they measure their success by the number of pads and different things they can manage remotely versus the number of miles they put on their truck, and so what percentage would you say of operators can manage their remote locations right now? Like, let's say that you have zero, and nobody's at zero. There's still lots of industrial IoT and different PLCs and devices to manage it. But let's say, what would you say between 0 and 100% which is impossible, right? Never have a truck roll again unless you had robots on the pad.
Right.
Where do you think we're at in general? Would you say we're 50% automated, 40%, 80%? Where would you say we're at in the current?
That question kind of lends itself to another kind of a bifurcation between oil production and natural gas production.
Okay.
In the dry gas fields, such as the parts of the Marcellus, the Eagle Ford, the Haynesville, even the Arkoma in Oklahoma, the natural gas side is easier to use telemetry and remote monitoring with because you're not dealing with a lot of fluid. On the oil side, where you're dealing with fluid in tanks, in storage, et cetera, it's a little dicier just from the standpoint that that you can have more mishaps, you can have more environmental concerns or whatever. But I would say the majority of producers do have telemetry, but mostly on the gas side. And I don't think a lot of them utilize tank levels, remote monitoring, et cetera. And it's been around for a while, but I think they're always looking more for the newer technology that is more cost efficient, that is more up to date, and also things like accounting purposes and financials, and being able to get your hands on that quickly and dramatically with respect to the production as it's producing. And like a firm we're dealing with now, we're consulting for, that does a lot of remote software for derivative NYMEX trades. We're also helping them with a midstream remote scenario on the accounting side. And then also information like our Midstream Report. I think people now want information at their fingertips, and they want it on a daily basis, and they want it to be relevant to their jobs and their workplaces as well. So I think the technology, in light of the COVID-19, in light of being more efficient because of commodity prices being low, in light of stock prices and returns for private equity firms, people are looking at right now at every dollar that's on their plate.
So this Midstream Report you're going to do, what can someone do with that they couldn't do otherwise? What will allow them to do?
We think the best thing about the Reese Midstream Report is that it's most people in the industry, when they go to look to see what's going on in their sector of the industry, they get on the internet on their phone or their laptop, and they go to Reuters and Hartz and all these publications every day to kind of see what all's going on. And that's excellent on a macro scale across the broad array of energy sectors. What we are doing is just focusing on the midstream and the lower 48 and giving the public the most relevant projects, executions, executives, companies that are in this on a day-to-day basis, and saving them that time. At least it's a great starting point to look and see what's happening, today. And we're doing all that scourging of all those wire services and online services, and trying to consolidate those in one place and make it affordable as to where an individual or a company with a company subscription can go in and garner that information.
So I know you mentioned that you have a training company as well. I mean, in light of kind of where things are at, what do you see as sort of that next generation of training that companies are going to need? Like I could tell you, even in the digital Roughneck space, I'm thinking through a whole set of training deal to, in the future, that would allow someone who's got the operational technology skills and add the technology, which, by the way, I think will enhance their value tremendously. I saw this in the IT world when I would encourage people, hey, go out and get your Microsoft certification. And we would just survey people and we say, hey, if you got that deal, you were worth $14,400 more a year, right? I mean, it was literally a demonstrative upgrade in their marketability. I also see that do that the digital roughneck skills we're talking about, like software and AI recognition and remote tank level monitoring and all these new digital skills are going to definitely, upgrade someone's career. So what in your training, as you kind of look out there and plan and what people are asking for, what do you kind of see as kind of that next gen thing out there that people are going to need?
We really, what I think is somewhat that you mentioned on yours is the fact that people are going to be wearing a lot more hats and a lot of different hats
Okay.
at a lot of these companies, and they're going to have to understand. It's interesting when we've gone in and trained at one of the big pipeline or midstream companies, and we'll have people in there that might be back office, they might be part of the custodian staff, they might be a receptionist, they might kind of be behind the scenes. It's interesting once that light goes off and they're like, gosh, that's what we do. And yes, I'd like to get into marketing, or I'd like to get into accounting or operations. And I think that's going to be more important now going forward, because a lot of these companies, including the midstream companies, are going to be cutting staff, and people are going to have to understand the business a lot better to be able to perform their jobs on more than one level.
I can imagine right now in this environment that, everybody is going to be a part-time salesperson, right? You got to get out there and sell, services on behalf of your company, generate some revenue to keep the lights on and stuff. Well, Steve, so if somebody wants to get a hold of you, work with you, talk to you about maybe this midstream report, training, other things that you've mentioned, I'm going to go ahead and put up your your website so people can see that. But what's the best way to get a hold of you and kind of explore some of the services you offer?
Sure. Well, you can email me through the Reese Energy Consulting website, just reeseenergyconsulting.com. And then the Midstream Report is just reesemidstreamreport.com. There are links there where you can talk to our editorial staff or sales staff or me personally as well. And, we'd love to discuss anything that we can and help any of these firms that need the help during these times.
That's great. Well, hey, I look forward to working with you too on that Midstream Report, maybe, and visit some of our joint friends that we have in the midstream business. And so, Steve, I want to thank you for doing that. Also, want to thank our sponsor, Clean Connect. It's a brand new service for helping you remotely monitor and manage your pads. So, again, Steve, thanks for being here, and hey, we're going to both roll up our sleeves and see what we can do to help this industry, move forward. And as some guy who's been in this industry for 40 years, this isn't the first down cycle you've been through, right? This is a big roller coaster. And what you can just end with some encouragement possibly to the audience, just saying, how many downturns have you seen in this industry? And what you can promise is you will come out the other end.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, we were looking the other day, my staff and I, we've been through this probably 5 or 6 times, and the hardest thing to swallow, obviously, are people losing their jobs.
Right.
And we always have those people in our thoughts and prayers, along with the COVID-19 scenario as well. But the energy business isn't going anywhere. We just at a barrel of oil, the crude oil basically produces about 6,000 items that you use in your daily life. So we do feel like we'll come out of this fine, and we're going to have to get more efficient, and we're going to have to watch our pennies. But we're in the same boat with a lot of industries right now, and this is such a great country that we'll come back roaring a lot better than ever.
Great. Perfect way to end this particular episode. Thank you so much, Steve.
It's all my pleasure. Thank you, Mark.